The regular season is heating up. New stars are emerging, and that means more opportunities to win up to 25 times your cash on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection on a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's that easy. Let it fly to turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Watch your favorite players and get paid doing it this basketball season. See your entries make progress during the game or make new entries for the second half and the fourth quarter. 3-pointers, assists, rebounds, and everything in between are yours for the taking. Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
So our podcast is called Right and Wrong.
Are these your notes?
These
These are your notes about what we're going to say?
Anything.
Nailed it.
Yes, the short answer.
So how many novels did you not finish?
Oh my god, so many.
It was perfect. What's she talking about? This is nonsense.
Ooh, a spicy question. I love it.
This is it, guys. The big secret to getting published is you have to write a good book. You heard it here first. Hello, and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. Today, I'm with one of the first guests ever to record for this podcast, one of my absolute book besties, my co-conspirator on our new podcast, The Chosen Ones and Other Tropes. Go check it out. It's YA thriller author, Naomi Gibson.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Yay.
Welcome back.
Woo.
How's it going? How's 2023?
Well, it's day 3 of 2023, and so far, no complaints.
So far.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the exciting thing, which is in 2 days' time, but by the time this comes out, it will already be out. Your second novel, Game Over Girl, out January 5th.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about it.
Tell you about it. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I'm really excited about it.
Oh, but that's good.
It's just good. Yeah, that helps. It's the thriller that I've always wanted to write.
Okay.
And then it's another YA thriller in case you don't know who's listening. I write thrillers. So it's about a girl with a dark secret who plays a VR game, and her secret unravels inside of her game world. And it's really close to my heart because you know me, I love writing about humans and technology and how there's like a relationship there between the two things, I think. Yeah. And my first book was about AI, so it was only a matter of time before I got to VR, I think.
True.
Yeah, so this is that book. This one is all about VR and how we might use VR to tackle our inner secrets.
Yeah. That's cool. So, like you mentioned, Every Line of You, your first novel, also a thriller. So they're always, it's so far, both of them are sort of sci-fi-ish thrillers with technology, but there is a romantic component as well.
Yeah, I think I like writing a sort of romantic element to books. It's what I like reading, so it makes sense to put them in my books. And I do have that, but not as strongly as Every Line of You. This one is probably more of a straight-up thriller.
Okay.
Which I did actually miss writing a romance element, because, like, I think from like a craft point of view, they make for really easy subplots.
Yeah.
And if you want to have something else going on, like a B story, a romance is a really good way to do that.
It's really compelling.
Yeah, and it is. Who doesn't love like people falling in love, you know?
Will they, won't they?
Will they, won't they? Exactly. You know, Love Triangle, which you can check out on our other podcast.
Yeah, when that episode comes out, you'll be able to check it out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even with Every Line of You, though, it did feel more thriller than romance.
Yeah.
Do you think you'd ever lean heavier into romance in one of these?
So that's an interesting question because I think I don't really read a lot of straight up romances. So I wouldn't really want to write one, I think, because I probably wouldn't really know what I'm doing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because for me, I would struggle. I'd be like, okay, so the romance is the A story. What's the B story? You know, it's kind of like the reverse, isn't it? You put the secondary, what I would call a primary plot, you would put as a secondary plot, and it would probably come out all weird. I don't think I would do that.
Yeah, I think it's actually much harder than I think most people realize writing romance, and you have to have the right head for it. Because,
I agree.
As you say, you just need to know that you can write a compelling enough romance with good enough characters and conflict to have that as your main storyline, which I think is so difficult.
Yeah, for sure. I think I would probably also gravitate towards someone dying or something really horribly. Which does not make for romance.
Would you ever write something that's not a thriller?
Yeah, I have written. Oh, can I tell you about it? Okay. So
you can tell me whatever you want.
Sell me your soul. So I just finished writing my first adult horror book. I finished it. I'm so proud of myself. I finished it on the 31st of December at 8 p.m. So my goal throughout 2022 was to write a new book, and it was getting to the end of the year, and I was like, oh shit, I'm not going to be able to do this. And this, a new idea hit me for a horror book. I wanted to write a straight up adult book for a while. And this idea hit me in the middle of November, and I chased it, and I finished it at 8 p.m. on the 31st of December. I was so chuffed with myself.
That's dedication.
Yeah, and it worked out well for dinner as well. We had dinner like a minute later, so we finished it in time for dinner too.
It was all quids in for you.
Yeah, all the cards aligned.
Are you then someone that works best when you are under the immediate threat of an upcoming deadline?
Yeah, interesting question. I don't know. I think I was pantsing that book. You know me. You're a pantser too, so yeah, kindred spirits.
Less pantsy.
Less pantsy. Oh, you've never had too much of an influence on you.
Yeah, I spent too much time with Melissa.
Yeah, so I'm a pantser, and I was just chasing this book, writing pretty much whatever came to mind, and I was having such a good time doing it that I managed to meet my deadline. I was tempted to leave it and think about it for a while, and maybe it would go into the new year, but I was like, no, I think I can finish it. So I just I got it to the deadline that I'd set myself. But I've never really struggled to meet a professional deadline. Even though I am a pantser, maybe I'm a bit of an organized pantser. I don't know. I don't know. I always seem to make it. I don't know if I rise to the occasion. It just seems to happen. So we'll see in the future.
Well, like for the first draft though, because I feel like we talked about this before with Melissa as well, where we were saying like, if you do discovery writing, aka pantsing, it kind of is like doing a plan, but your plan is just your first draft, your like vomit draft, and then your second draft is more like what your first draft would be if you were an intricate planner. Yeah,
I think that's probably the case. I've never handed in like a first draft where I've just pantsed it. I do go back and edit before I would send it in, for example. But yeah, it's always, I don't know, it's just worked out for me. Long may it continue.
So, second book, first of all, from its sort of from the inception of this, how it kind of you kind of worked through it all the way to publication. Was it a very different experience from every line of you? Yes,
book 2 was a lot harder to write. I think you've probably heard this before quite a few times, I'm sure. I'm sure I'm not telling anything new, but book 2 was a lot more difficult. Like I've just said, I'm a pantser. I love to chase an idea and see where it ends up naturally. Whereas this idea, it was a pitch, and I wrote it from a synopsis, and I found that quite hard, which is because it was all laid out in front of me, and I kind of knew what I was aiming for, and I knew what I was working towards. So none of it was like really a surprise to me. And I love to be surprised when I'm writing. I love to like let a story take me to somewhere that I didn't know it was going to go. And just like wake up one morning, and, not know what I'm going to write that day. And then it comes out and you're like, oh, that's brilliant. Genius. Whereas if it's like out in front of me in the synopsis, I already know what I'm aiming for. And I find it less, exciting to write, I guess. And I suppose that from that point of view, it becomes more of like finding the right words and edging the story towards the right beat that I need to hit my synopsis. So yeah, it was a very different process, but I recognize that this is probably the way around that books are actually written, for the industry. Like, like it was a 2-book contract. And you have your second book locked in already, and you just need to come up with the idea and pitch it, and they say yes. And then you go and you write it. So there's no, unless you have a manuscript in your drawer,
Yeah.
You know, it's probably going to be that way around for the majority of your writing career. So I recognize that, you need to get better at writing from synopsis.
Yeah, because if the deal's already locked in, you have to give them a book. They need to sign off on something that is at least close to, in some degree, what the final thing is going to be. I'm sure there's leeway. You can change it. You can work with the editors and things, but...
Yeah, for sure. So for me, I had a 2-book deal with Chicken House, which I was really lucky to get. And originally, my second book was going to be a sequel for Every Line of You. So I tried to be clever. I had written that sequel, by the way. And I tried to be clever and pitch an idea for a third book to get another contract. And I sent my pitch to my editor, and I was really excited. And I was like, it's going to be this idea of a girl playing a VR game, and inside that game, she's building a house, and each level on the house is something that happened to her. And we go through the house, unraveling her secret because she thinks her mother died, and then it all comes out how she actually died. And the more time she spent in her VR house, the more she discovered that she'd hidden something in the basement. She'd hidden the truth in the basement, and it's all about her going to that basement. And so I wrote this really excited sort of pitch to my editor, and she was like, "Yes, that's your second book." So I was like, "God, damn it!" So it was decided that you can write a sequel whenever you want, I suppose. Like if your first book has done well, you don't necessarily need to write a sequel straight away. So we thought it would be stronger to go out with a standalone book as a second book of my contract, because just in case that Every Line of You didn't do that well, then I've got this other book that's a fresh idea, and you're not trying to plug a sequel to something that hadn't performed as well as they might have wanted.
True.
So,
although, I mean, I do think that some people do need to be told that there is a time limit, perhaps, with sequels. Patrick Rothfuss, we're looking at you.
Looking at me. Me with the wind.
Getting back to you. So, I mean, you led me perfectly onto what I was going to ask next, which was, that was 2 of 2 for the book deal that you signed. What are your next steps as an author?
Next steps as an author? Well, I have written an adult book, which I'm very excited to ram in my agent's face as soon as possible. Please, Joe, if you're listening. And I'm pitching for a second contract for YA books as well. I want to be an author who writes cross category, because that just makes sense. I like authors that do that. Like I can think of a couple that come to mind already, like V. Schwab and Holly Black, and they're writing
Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think as an author, as a writer as well, it gives you flexibility, and you can chase ideas, whatever category they are, and not be pigeonholed into one area. So that would be something that I would really like to be able to do. But in terms of like actual ideas, for my YA stuff, I'm going to continue that sort of thriller tech angle. And I've got an idea about a hologram. And I've got an idea about clones as well. So,
okay, yeah, I like it. You're going through all the kind of cool AI, the futuristic sci-fi stuff. I love it.
Yeah, that kind of like near future kind of thing. Yeah.
So when you say you're pitching for new YA stuff, is that a sort of open? Like, is that you and Joanna Molt, your agent, going out to sort of all publishers, or are you still kind of talking with Chicken House? Do they have like a first right of refusal thing?
Yes, my contract did have one of those in. I'm not actually sure if I write an entire book or if it's just pitches, but basically I'm in discussions with my editor at the moment for what will come next, and we're just trying to iron out something that we both like the sound of, because I did find it hard writing book 2 from a synopsis, and at times it was really a struggle. So I want to make sure that whatever I go in with next is an idea that I can definitely pull to full length, because I think in one of my drafts that I did of Game Over Girl, it was only maybe like 45k, and that is really short, and it was only through the editing process that I pulled it to like what it is now, which I think is 67. So it came a long way.
And now that you've done it once, do you think you'd be better at writing from a synopsis now that you've kind of learned the things you need to learn from that experience?
Yeah, I think so. It's so funny, isn't it? Because when you write your first book, it's probably this labor of love. Whereas your second book, you do go through this, you go through the same process, but you do it in a much shorter time period. So I wrote maybe like 8 or 9 drafts of my first book. I only wrote maybe 4 of my second, but it was the same developmental stuff going into it. It just like it was all captured within less drafts because of the time constraint.
Yeah.
So I think I've learned a lot. Yeah, for sure. And it was definitely eye-opening because that's, like I was saying before, that's how the industry works really if you're in contract. So it was definitely good to go through it, and I feel lucky that I've gone through it where I have, because Chicken House is so lovely.
Yeah. And then with your third book, it's just YOLO. I'm going to do a different genre, different age group.
Yeah, so I switched it all up then.
Getting back to you a little bit, I wanted to talk a bit about the industry itself, and now that you've been in it and around it for a while, but you still have a full-time job, even though you have now 2 books in thought. And obviously, Game Over Girl has literally just come out, so that will continue to grow. But now that you've been through the publishing machine a couple of times, you kind of know how it goes, what to expect. Are you going into this book launch with a more sort of seasoned expectation than with your debut?
Ooh, a seasoned expectation. I don't know if I'm not seasoned yet.
Well, I wanted a neutral description for those expectations.
No. I'm just thinking like, what have I learned actually?
I've learned nothing.
I learned nothing. Yeah, I just turned up. I because I work full time, I use a lot of my leave to write. So I think I struggled last year in 2022. For time off that was genuine time off, when you're not writing and you're not actually working. And I think I became one of those people who were like, oh, so what do I do with my free time, if I'm not writing and I'm not working? It was really difficult. So I think what I've learned for this book is to just protect your time, protect my time. And I think I said this to you before. I think I was shouting myself hoarse online, being like, "I've got a book coming out. Everyone needs to buy it." I'm being a lot more careful this time around, not choosing where I put my energy, choosing how much I try yelling about it, because you have no control over other people and whether they will buy it or not. And I think I've realized that that's definitely something I've learned, in the fact that no matter how hard you try, you can't force people to buy your book.
Yeah.
So it's just like this time around, I'm definitely being more careful and choosier with what I do in terms of promotion and coming on excellent podcasts like yours.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like in some ways you're taking care of yourself better.
Yeah, I'd say so for sure. Definitely mental health wise as well. Because it can be so all consuming, if you let it, you can get so obsessed with figures and rankings and how well something's doing. And it's just like, it's not healthy. And I think working full time and trying to write is really difficult. I don't think I could ever be a full-time writer, because I think I would need something else to distract me from sales, from marketing, because it's just too personal. It's almost like you're putting your baby out there and people are judging it, and then you're seeing these reviews come in, and what if they're not good? And it's just too hard to sit there and watch it happen. So I think I would need something part-time, even just to distract me from publishing world. Force you to kind of switch it off. Exactly. Just to force me to think of something else, for sure.
That's interesting. So let's talk. I want to talk a bit about numbers here, because I talk to a lot of people who don't know about publishing, don't know about writing. My friends, family will ask me questions. It's like, oh, how does this work? How does this work? When you have an advance, you get an advance, and then am I right in thinking that works by you earn it out by selling books, and you will only ever see the return of book sales once your advance has been paid out.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So did you have this, was it the same advance for both your books?
Yeah. So it was a 2-book deal with the same figure for both books. Yeah.
And when do they give you the advance for the second book? Is it after they've accepted the pitch?
Yeah. So it probably depends on your contract. My advance for both books is split into 3. When I signed my contract, I got the first part of my advance for both books.
Okay.
So for easy figures, let's say your advance is £3,000 and it's split into 3. So when I signed my contract, I got £1,000 for my first book and £1,000 for my second book.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the second part, you get your next chunk sent to you when they've accepted your manuscript. So after you signed your contract, you go and you edit your book with your editor until it's ready for copy edits. And at that point, when it's ready for copy edits, the publisher have probably accepted the manuscript, and that triggers the second part of your advance. So I got the second part of my first book, and then on publication day, you get the third part of your book. So at the moment, because it's the 3rd of January and my book is published on the 5th, I haven't got my last part of my advance for book 2. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. No, that makes a lot of sense. And also it kind of works both ways. I feel like both the author and the publisher are protected with that system.
I think so. Yeah. I think three parts works really well because everybody knows where they're at with it. But I've heard people's advances being split into like 5 or 7 stages, and it's like, that sounds really confusing. I don't know. So
okay, so it does vary book to book.
I think so.
To author,
publishing house. Yeah, I think that's maybe more common in America, but I'm not 100% sure. I've heard of it more over there. 3 seems to be quite common for the UK, but I don't know.
Okay, and I mean, I know that all of these contracts are almost all unique. You know, there's always
there's that too.
That are different.
I don't think there's one off the shelf.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no two authors will likely have the same. They'll have similar contracts, but there'll probably be a few differences between them, and that's to do with the agents as well. So it's a whole. For sure. It's lots of juggling of things up in the air.
Did you want to talk about out earning it?
I did, but I didn't know how to phrase it.
Okay, well, I'll lead on.
Go on. Why don't you just take over the interview from this point onwards? That's fine.
So, after you have received your £3,000 advance and it's all signed off, it's publication day, and you've had the last part, and you've got all of your advance, and your agent has taken their cut, you then have to we don't have to, but it's ideal if you out earn that £3,000. And the way to do that is through hard sales of books or through foreign territory deals. So
does that mean ebooks wouldn't count? Or
sorry, yeah.
Audiobooks?
Ebooks and audiobooks help as well towards your advances. Okay. The way that I out earned mine for Every Line of You was through foreign territory sales. So I did. Every Line of You actually did amazingly well. It was like 9 territories in 11 countries, and it got options for a TV series as well. And so what happens is all of those advances that you get offered by those foreign territories go towards your UK advance. I think I get 80% of them and my publisher gets 20% of them. So they've made money off them as well. It's not just like, it doesn't always go to me. And the same for the TV deal. That helped me out earn as well. So your advance is £3,000, let's say, and all your foreign territories have pushed you up to your £3,000. So you've basically out earned your advance, and anything after that you get purely to your pocket within the terms of your contract. So, like I just said, your publisher will take 20% of whatever you get foreign territory wise. You know, that's what's in my contract. Yeah, and any sales that you earn after that £3,000 would be royalties. That's how you start triggering royalties. Okay,
so can you out earn your advance before it's been paid out in full?
Yes, technically, that was what happened to me with Every Line of You. I knew that I would out earn it straight away, but I didn't get any of the money until my royalty statement.
Right. Okay.
So it's like I knew it was coming to me, but you don't get it until you get your first royalty statement.
Okay, that's really interesting. That's it's really good to know going into these kinds of things how these works, how the kind of minutiae interacts. Because I think most people probably don't know or think about these things before they get into it. You know, you're just very enthusiastic about writing, and you've got an agent, and you've signed with a publisher, and it's all great. But it's good to know the details. And staying on the theme of expectations, what tips would you give to writers who are just getting into publishing now? Maybe they've just signed with an agent, or they've got interest from a publisher.
Wow, what tips would I give? Congratulations, first of all. if you signed with an agent and a publisher, that's really, really exciting. Tips wise, I would try and form a good relationship with your editor. I get along with mine really, really well.
Not Cassia Lupo.
The very same.
No, she's great. We love Cassia.
Yeah, she's so easy to chat to. She's really friendly. I have a good relationship with her, and I'm comfortable pitching direct to her and just copying my agent in. You know, I'm comfortable asking her questions. I obviously it's a professional relationship, and I don't like tell her everything, because that would be, you know, probably go against me. But I would try and get to the point where you have like a good rapport, I would say, with your editor.
That's not always the case, though. I mean, that's a lot of people will do all of their pitching to their agent, and their agents will do most of the talking in that relationship.
Yeah, I think so. And then, that's what they're there for as well. Use your agent, absolutely. I'm not saying don't, by the way, if anyone's reading that they are both very different sides of the table, and your agent is definitely on your side. But just if you can strike up a good relationship with your editor, it's never going to hurt you. So.
No, of course not. It's always, I mean, everyone, you want to be working with lots of people who are sort of like-minded to some degree. You're all trying to create the best possible book you can.
Yeah, and like, you know, it's a small industry and people get reputations. You don't want to be one of those authors. Do you know what I mean? Well, I don't anyway.
Okay. Maybe I should wrap this up before this gets scandalous.
No, I don't mean it. I don't got any tea. I'm just saying, like, it's a conversation. I want to be open to conversation. I don't want to be one of those authors who's hard to work with, so no one wants to work with you, you know?
Yeah.
That's basically what I'm trying to say.
Well, congratulations on. I was gonna dial it back here, but you already mentioned it. That you and anyone who follows you on Instagram or Twitter will already know this. That you did finish your manuscript on the day before New Year, on New Year's Eve. Mm-hmm. And you already told us what it was. So horror. Is this going to be your new genre? Is horror a pivot that you'd be interested in doing?
Yeah, you know, it's so weird. I never thought I'd be a horror writer. I only probably horror is scary. Like, I only really started reading horror maybe like 3 years ago. I think there's certain types of it that I definitely gravitate towards. I love psychological horror. This is probably that, I would say.
That crosses over kind of into Every Line of You and Game Over Girl to a degree.
I'd say so. I think Game Over Girl is probably quite a psychological thriller. But I find people fascinating in psychology. So, I think psychological horror is something that I definitely like to dip a toe in. What was your question? I'm just babbling. Sorry.
But before we kind of outro this into the next thing, I did want to ask. Always fun to ask people, especially when they've been on the podcast before. How much has and we did touch on it. How much has your approach and style to writing evolved since way back when you first started writing? And I know you still do pantsing / discovery, but have you tried plotting? Have you experimented with different styles?
Yes, this year I've experimented quite a lot with post-it notes, which I have discovered are not for me.
Okay.
I tried, but again, I'm quite a big fan of the 3-act structure, and the whole thing with post-it notes is that you can stick your first act down and stick it again on the second act, blah, 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 and you can move your post-its around, and it's quite good from that point of view. But again, you know, I can see it. I can see my book, and I don't like it. I like to be taken by surprise because as you're writing it, and then, you know, when people are reading it, they're taken by surprise too, and that makes for really nice, natural little twists. And that's kind of what I chase down, I think. So Post-it notes were interesting for a little while, but I don't think they're for me. So I've stuck to my main method of just scribbling on a big whiteboard. And,
that's cool. Wait, you have a big whiteboard? That's cool.
Yeah, probably. So I'm just looking at the one I've got behind me for the horror book that I just wrote, and actually it's turned out nothing like that. So that's quite funny.
I hope Melissa's listening to this.
Yeah, from the ears, shivering away.
Pulling her hair out. Okay.
It's quite funny.
Very cool. You've already put a book in the Desert Island Library.
I have.
I'm completely blanking on the name. I remember the plot of it. It was about locking secrets in a book or something.
Yeah, it's called The Binding. I think that's probably still my answer. I think I would still take that. I was reading it the other day, actually, which, you know, I don't really go back to books. I'm not really a rereader, I think. So the fact that I've reread that one, I think, says a lot. So yeah, I still take The Binding.
The Binding it is. Amazing. Well, thanks so much for coming back on, Noami. Always a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
And for anyone listening, if you want to keep up with what Naomi is doing, you can follow her on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Naomi G Writes. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at Right and Wrong UK, or on Instagram and TikTok at Right and Wrong Podcast. And you can check out our new podcast with Melissa Welliver herself, The Chosen Ones and Other Tropes. You can find that at The Other Tropes on socials.
Yeah.
No, wait. At The Chosen Tropes on socials. I'm new to this. I'm sorry.
Come on, Jamie.
I've not done that shout out before. Okay, well, thanks so much for listening. Thanks, Naomi, and we'll see everyone on the next episode.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for hanging around to the end. Now, let me tell you about Write Mentors Hub. A subscription to Write Mentors Hub gives you access to an online community where children's writers at any stage of their writing and publishing journeys can interact, share advice, offer support, develop craft, and advance their careers. From craft talks to TikTok strategies, a shoulder to cry on while querying agents, or marketing advice for your soon-to-be-published debut, there's something for everyone. Every day is a writing day for Hub members, with an ever-growing range of initiatives like critique groups, workshops, pitching events, writing sprints, Q&As, and many, many more. The Hub is constantly expanding, so go and check out the Write Mentor website for the full and up-to-date list of member-only benefits. You can get your first month completely free if you enter the coupon code Right and Wrong at the online checkout. That's WRITE, the and symbol, WRONG, at checkout for your first month free. So go join the Hub, Write Mentor's supportive community of storytellers, because writing can be lonely, but it doesn't need to be.